When you flip on a light switch, what are you actually paying for? It's not just the juice flowing through the wires, right? It's the whole journey it took to get to you. Today, we're going to break down the real all-in cost of power using one of the most respected analyses in the entire energy world. So, think about this for a second. How on earth do you compare a solar farm that might last 25 years to a nuclear plant that could run for 80? One only works when the sun is out, the other runs 24/7. They have completely different price tags for fuel and construction. It's a classic apples and oranges problem, and to solve it, we need a very special tool. And this gets us to the big question. What is the cheapest way to make electricity? To really find out, we have to look way beyond the initial sticker price and figure out the true cost over a power plant's entire life. Honestly, it's a lot like buying a car. You wouldn't just look at the price on the window, would you? No way. You'd think about gas mileage, how often you need an oil change, insurance, the whole shebang. It's the total cost of ownership that really matters. And energy is exactly the same. And that's where this tool comes in. It's called the levelized cost of energy. It's the industry gold standard for making a true apples-to-apples comparison, and it's the absolute key to unlocking the real cost of power. So the levelized cost of energy, or LCOE for short, boils everything down to just one number. It's the rock-bottom price per megawatt hour that a power plant has to sell its electricity for just to break even over its whole life. It is the ultimate apples-to-apples metric. Okay, so how do they calculate this magic number? Conceptually, it's pretty simple. First, you add up every single penny of cost over the plant's entire lifetime, building it, fuel, paying people to run it, everything. Second, you add up all the energy it will ever produce. And finally, you just divide the total costs by the total energy. Boom, that's your LCOE. All right, we've got our tool. Now for the main event. Let's put all the different ways we make power into the ring and see who comes out on top in the great cost showdown. So what happens when we run the numbers for brand new power plants if we were to build them today? Well, the results are in and they might just surprise you. And here is the headline. On an unsubsidized basis, and that's key, this is without any government tax credits, the cheapest forms of new power generation today are onshore wind and big utility-scale solar farms. They consistently come in cheaper than building a brand new natural gas plant. But, this was not always the case. Not even close. The story of solar power is nothing short of a cost revolution. Back in 2009, its average LCOE was a jaw-dropping $359. By 2015, it had plunged to $64, and today, it's down around $38. That is a total game changer. To put that in perspective for you, since 2009, the levelized cost of utility-scale solar has fallen by 84%, an 84% drop. That's all thanks to incredible improvements in technology and just massive global manufacturing scale. Okay, but here's where we need to add a really critical piece of nuance. The analysis points out something incredibly important about the difference between building something new and just running something that's already paid for. And this reveals a huge distinction. While building a new gas plant is pretty expensive, the cost to simply run an existing one that's already been paid off can be incredibly cheap, sometimes as low as $31. At that point, you're really only paying for the fuel and the day-to-day operations. And this is why these plants are still such a cornerstone of our grid. Now, having super cheap solar and wind is fantastic, but it brings its own little challenge, right? What happens when the sun goes down or the wind just stops blowing? That leads us to the missing piece of the puzzle, energy storage. This is the fundamental challenge of a grid that relies heavily on renewables. You need a way to bottle up all that cheap solar power from lunchtime and then uncork it during the evening when everybody gets home and turns on their lights. And that is the job of grid-scale batteries. And just like generation, storage has its own levelized cost, the LCOS. The story here is pretty much the same. Costs are falling, and fast. Now, adding a battery is still an expense, for sure, but government incentives are really helping to make them an affordable way to keep the grid stable 24/7. So we've looked at generation, we've looked at storage, but to really understand energy, you have to zoom out and look at the entire system as a whole. Because, let's be real, building the single cheapest power plant isn't the real goal. The goal is building an affordable and a reliable system that can power millions of homes and businesses all day, every day. And that is a much, much more complex puzzle to solve. And for a country as vast as the United States, there is no single answer. The best energy mix for the super sunny Southwest is completely different from what you'd want in the windy plains or the crowded Northeast. Every single region is its own unique puzzle of resources and demand.
I mean, just take a look at California, for example. Its energy mix is this incredible balancing act. It uses a massive amount of solar during the day, but it still has to rely heavily on natural gas and hydropower to fill the gaps when the sun sets. It just proves there are no simple one-size-fits-all solutions here.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway? Well, first, there's no silver bullet. A diverse mix of energy sources is absolutely key to keeping the lights on. And while cost is king, it's not the only thing that matters. And finally, technology, especially in energy storage, is just rapidly changing the rules of the entire game.
Which leaves us with this final big question. The energy world is changing faster than ever before. As all these technologies get cheaper and our grid gets smarter, what is going to power your world in 10 or 20 years? The story is still being written. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.